go over the early look for the baseball slate this evening. Just kind of an update. Those of you that are reaching out, yeah, I did have a death in the family over the weekend, and I appreciate all the well wishes. It was obviously a pretty tough weekend. It'll continue to be tough, but I'm going to do my best to fight through it and get what I need to get done and all the different businesses that I have going on, including this one. So we're going to get back into it just to, cast some light on the situation just a little bit. I put in a couple of lineups before I heard news and stuff like that, and I went back later in the day, and I want to show you something. So this is I don't know what was supposed to be good on this day or what wasn't, but where's share screen? Share screen. This is from I think this is from Saturday. This was the Grand Slam. I got like fourth.
Oh my God.
For like 5,000. I don't know who all these people were, but everybody here was like 4% owned. I don't know what ended up happening, but I had Gausman and Era. Oh, this was when Strider got strashed or something. Oh, the Atlanta game got postponed or something.
Postponed, right.
Strashed. This is what I had. I don't. Oh, you know what I ended up doing? Right. So I saw that Albies was scratched from whatever because of whatever. So I just basically went into my phone, and you can imagine I gotta deal with this shit. I'm like, so who's available at less of a price? And the only guy even that was available at less of a price was El Garcia. So I put him in. So I had a El Garcia one-off.
Garcia one-off.
And paid scored 20 fantasy points.
That's crazy.
So and I think I ended up leaving like 2,000 on the table with this also as a result. So anyway, I don't know really much what else happened over the MLB slates this weekend, but I'm ready to get into what looks like a very a compact and pretty misleading slate with respect to projections as far as I'm concerned. I'm going to get into that because what I did was I looked at I looked at the sheets and I'm like, forget that. I didn't look at the sheets. I looked at with my eyes at like these pitchers and these hitters. I'm like, okay, so who would I pick? Like not knowing anything, right? And I was pretty set on what I wanted to do, at least with the first pitcher. Second pitcher, I was between a couple of guys. And then when I pulled up, I ran the projections and I saw what was coming up with the projections. I'm like, really? I mean, so I'm probably gonna be anti-projection today, but we'll see how that goes. I guess we'll just go through kind of game by game and we'll just kind of deal with it. And listen, again, I appreciate all the well wishes for reaching out. This is a very, very good distraction for me. And it is, listen, it still is life, it still is business, so we still have to take care of this. So let's just get ready. I am sharing my screen, right?
Yeah, appreciate everything you said, and then obviously, we all have your back and support as much as we possibly can. And this is I'm glad to be a part of a distraction at the very least. So let's talk about Cleveland, New York. We got a little bit of a. Sheets, you're
it's been raining every day for the past 3 days here.
Seems like it's probably not going to be a postponed type of thing.
No, I walked to work today. I mean, it was very nice today, actually.
Yeah,
so far.
And it's interesting to note that just with pitching in these games where there's going to be delays. Well, the weird part is literally the highest scoring pitcher on two slates in one in 4 innings and 1 in 5 innings. Both got there and they just dominated. The complete game shutout from Fried within 5 innings. But the main thing is that the gameplay is a lot faster now. So just want to keep that in mind, that maybe not worry about your pitchers so much if you run into weather situations. Having said that, I'm not very interested in either of these pitchers. If I had to pick one, it would be Herman. And look, it is interesting. The Yankees haven't scored any runs lately without Judge. They also don't have Stanton, obviously. And I don't think Quantrill is anything special, but it's kind of hard on a small slate not to have basically a lot of guys on your list. And even with the struggles, I thought the Yankees would be a little bit higher owned. One thing I would consider doing is definitely stacking them today. I know they've struggled in the perception, but they're cheap. I don't think incredibly highly of Quantrill. There's not a whole lot of options. It is Yankee Stadium. The winds are blowing out a little bit. So a little bit out to left. So I actually think the Yankees are very viable here. And I'm open to Herman. That's where I'm at.
For my early looks, I have it's a small 6-game slate, but I have 5 stacks that I'm interested in. 3 of them I know I imagine will be pretty popular, and 2 are going to be not as much. So I didn't get to either of them. That's kind of the teaser because neither of them for me appear in this game. The Herman play is one of the ones that before I looked at projections, I was just kind of like visually considering as my second pitcher, and I might actually continue to think that even after the projections. He's projecting not as great as some of these other guys, but with the exception of the first pitcher that I'm definitely going to play. Second one, I'm just kind of not sure what I want to do. So I think Herman is in that not sure what I want to do pool, and he might end up being my top pitcher at the end of the day. That's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah, I'm right with you on that. We'll see what else we can find because I can't figure out what to do with him right now. And problem with Cleveland is they walk enough and they all like a bunch of little singles hitters. Just it's hard to get the strikeout sometimes, but Herman can definitely do it. So I'm open. All right, why don't you? What do you like?
I'll start. So this is my top one. So Mackenzie Gore is my top overall pitcher on the slate. As before I looked at the projections, and now they're showing him at like third or I'm having him now tied for second with a guy I wouldn't even imagine I'd be tied for second with, and they have him at only 20% ownership. Start. I don't quite understand. I mean, he's freaking really good. He's really good.
Yeah.
Against Chicago. I mean, I don't know. Maybe Chicago's better than I think they are, but I don't know. You're gonna have to beat me on this one. So I'm gonna be. You're gonna have to tear like Charlton has. You're gonna have to tear the gun out of my dead hand to. I would play Mackenzie Gore. I think in the top in my big buying today. So I'm gonna be playing that. And what about the leader of the free world, Drew Smiley? Two games removed from smashing. It was, his regressing, bouncing back a little bit in his last start. You can see that. And now he gets Washington. No issues. He's showing up for me as definitely he's definitely a reasonable option if you toss the chalk guy, which we're going to get to. So I'm in there, I guess. You know what I mean? He's another one of those. He's another one I'm really, really considering. Now, again, I'd like to get a win out of one of these guys, right? Both of them, but you can't. You get wins out of both of them. But I don't know. I think both these guys are really, really in play. And Gore, certainly.
Yeah, so this is a very strange one because I have interest in the pitching, and I also think at the very low-owned hitting on both sides is kind of interesting with the winds blowing out. It's 12 miles an hour. It's not Wrigley. It's in Washington, obviously. There is some rain, and it doesn't look like it's that bad, but it's just worrisome because it's Washington.
Yeah. For those of you who don't know what he's talking about, Washington has been very notorious for pulling the quick trigger.
Yep, they really do. And you know what? I wish it was always a quick trigger. Sometimes it's a slow trigger that they wait till after the game's locked.
Right.
But they definitely tend to cancel games more than other teams. I like the pricing on the Nationals, and I like the power upside if you can get Gore to get a little wild. And the pricing as well for the Cubs. I think that both sides of the hitting are going to be overlooked because both pitchers do look very good right now. I have Gore ahead of Smiley at the moment, but I think both of them are extremely viable. And at the same time, I don't know about full stacks necessarily because both these guys have been pretty good, but we know Smiley at least for sure can have one of those crazy regression games where he walks like 7 guys. Like we've seen this before with hot starts with him, and he goes through stretches where he looks unhittable and other stretches where he literally can't get anybody out. So I'm open to the hitting in this game, at least for pieces. But right now I do think the pitching is the priority here.
Definitely watch the weather.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. You want to start off Toronto, Boston?
Yep. So this was, I'm not getting to either of the pitching here. And both of these teams are in play for me as far as stacks go, but sort of for different reasons. Toronto I have is the best overall stack on the board by a pretty decent amount, but I just know they're going to be a top owned as well. So that's something to consider. And Boston I have is also being very viable, but not quite as highly owned. They're not as good of a play either, but that's okay. So I definitely have Boston as playable. And they're one of my two kind of like leveragey type stacks, I guess, best way to describe it. So I like Boston and I like Boston. I do like Toronto, but I don't know how I'm going to get them in. And with because Gore is going to end up being popular, and I really want to play him.
Mm-hmm.
But the other pitcher is going to be really popular. I'm not going to play, maybe. So maybe I can play Toronto. So anyway, Toronto best stack on the board, and Boston I think is a good lower owned option.
Yeah, so I actually do have interest in Barrios. I think if you compare him to the other pitchers in his price range, there's really no reason other than the fact that he's pitching in Boston that you would say he's not just as good or a better play than all of them. He's probably at this point like I don't know, better is a weird word, but like he's probably a better pitcher. He's been really good outside from his beginning starts. I mean, he put up 34 last time out there against the White Sox, so worth a little asterisk. But he had a nice game against Tampa Bay before that. He had a nice game he actually pitched decently in that game against Houston, even though he only had 15 fantasy points. So I'm open to using a low-owned Barrios as maybe a differentiator. And it kind of is it's interesting because you can kind of get him. It sort of goes along well with the Toronto stack. You get a 5-run lead, it makes it a lot easier for him to pitch without having to worry about control or anything like that. You know what I mean? So I'm actually open to Barrios. I agree that Toronto looks like, if you just take one quick look at the slate, you're going to say, oh, I want to play Toronto in Boston. That makes the most sense. It's going to be hard for me to ignore them entirely, but they definitely, I don't know how to fully stack a team like this and get away with it unless if I use Barrios is the best I could come up with. Otherwise, I think you just try to keep your stacks of Toronto to 4 men or less if you're that insistent on playing them. And I do think you can make an argument for Boston, who's going to be significantly lower owned. And it's sort of that funny treatment where Barrios is getting we don't really want to pick on him treatment today, but we also don't, you know what I mean? I don't think Boston gets a ton of ownership. So because of that, they're definitely on my list. And you're going to hear a lot of this on these small slates that you're trying to find any angle you can. But I think that if you play Toronto, you're going to have to use some low-owned pitching to try to differentiate like Barrios. And if you play, but you can get away with playing Boston pretty cleanly. You also could, this game feels very like you could stack the game, both hitting sides of it. So I think that because of the lack of ownership, I'm going to have more interest in Barrios and Boston tonight than I probably initially planned to.
San Francisco and Houston. Maybe I'll go back to back with El Garcia's. At El Garcia second base the other day, and El Garcia Houston tonight. I think he's totally reasonable as again a pitcher because I don't know what else to do in my second pitcher spot. That's the best I could describe this one. I don't usually have a lot of luck playing him, and I usually don't have a lot of luck not playing him. But again, I think he's definitely worth considering. I was hoping to get some insight from you. I'm not getting to Stripling. As a matter of fact, I do have Houston as the second alongside with Boston as possibly a lower owned, maybe not low owned, but lower owned stack. So I do like Houston today. So Houston plus, and then Luis Garcia would be my exposure to this team.
Yeah, Garcia has been damn near unhittable lately. I look, as much as we know the Giants have some decent hitters, this is not a lineup that in general that like I get really excited to take pitchers against. I mean, look who Garcia just dominated. It was Tampa Bay and Toronto. Like, okay. Right. He has struggled more with lefties, and San Francisco's got plenty of them. But I just think on this slate, like to me, he seems like the most obvious. I don't want to say fully safe, but he seems like a very, 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 very reasonable play at 9,200. So I actually have him as a priority right now. Of all the guys we talked about, I think I like him the best. And Stripling is interesting because I don't, where he's at right now is not necessarily the pitcher he was or could have been. He's always had the injury bug. Like I've always thought he was a better pitcher than he gets projected for, but it's going to be hard on this slate not to have Houston up there. And I am sort of shocked by how low their ownership is. So just based on the fact that it's Houston completely low owned on a small or very low owned compared to where they could be. I mean, Pena, Tucker, Alvarez always get ownership. But the rest of the guys sort of like end up in no man's land. And I'm into the idea of playing a lower owned Houston stack on this slate. So I actually have Houston as a priority. If you're going to stack a team with Toronto, maybe you can do not the non-chalky Houston guys, the non-Alvarez, Tucker Pena, maybe, Bregman, Abreu, Jolks, Devon, and you get value out of that as well. So that's something that definitely has occurred to me today. I do have Houston as a team that I'm definitely gonna have a lot of exposure to.
All right, so but we're trying to emphasize. We have a new homepage and whatever it is. We emphasize the idea of transparency. That very, very open about what we play and why we like it and whatever it is. We don't like to hedge. We don't like to do anything. And so in the name of transparency, I'm going to tell you that what I'm going to sell you on is a terrible idea. Not that it's a terrible idea, okay, but I'm going to be positioning myself as the ultimate sucker in this take, okay? So the question is when do you just rely on game logs and like stupid stuff that square people do, and when do you just rely on like kind of like long-term data and this? Okay, so if I asked my son, if I told my son, what do you think of Blake Snell tonight? He would say, what do you mean? What, do you want to play the other team? Like, why? Why'd you say that? I said, he does nothing. He has 12 fantasy points, 13 fantasy points, 9 fantasy points, -1.8. What would you consider this for? And then I said, well, I mean, he's got long-term results that, he's over years and years and years. He's like, yeah, but my son said, yeah, but he stinks now, right? I'm like, okay, it's just not that easy yet, Matt. It's like you got to go back to like long-term data and stuff like that. And he's like, dude, Dad, I don't know what you're talking about. I just see 0-4. I see ERA 5.48. But Eric, but Dad, like, I guess if you played him, I guess no one else is going to. I'm like, well, he's like, what? What do you mean? I'm like, as a matter of fact, like 50% of the people are going to play him.
Right?
Like, are you out of your mind? I mean, I'm going to law school. I mean, I got tuition to pay, and you're really gonna play a guy that's 0-4 with a 5.50 ERA that gets no fantasy points and is going to be 50% owned because of what he's done like 3 years ago? I'm like, I don't know. I don't really have an answer for you, Matt. You know what I mean? I really don't have one. And I pull up my sheets, and he projects to be the best play on the slate. And I don't know. I'm just not going to do it. I'm going to be that idiot. I'm an idiot that looks at him and say, I'm just not. He's just not doing it this year for me at 50% ownership. And that's the key. And that's what, to me, what separates when you can just like ignore stuff and when you can identify stuff as important is when it's a 50% owned guy. So for me, this could be the day where he shows his back class and puts up 30 against a weak team, obviously weak team. But someone else is going to win except for me.
I totally agree with you. And I'll take it a step further. I love when Blake Snell is on small slates because I think that there's always value in like taking a shot against him, and no one's going to do that tonight. So I'm totally on board with taking playing some Cincinnati tonight. And I think that's actually a really, really interesting. There's just not a very good team, so maybe not a full stack, but 3 or 4, maybe pair them.
Who are the righties you play again for these dudes?
What's that?
Who are the righties you play for these guys? India, right?
India is the best one.
Steer a righty as well.
Stevenson, Steer, depends on where Senzel's hitting in the order, but Ramos, there's a lot of cheap ones. Matt Reynolds will probably only get 2 at bats, maybe 3.
Will Myers is out. Okay.
But I can get on board. It depends on where Fairchild hits, whether or not. But like, it's really going to depend on how their lineup comes out, which is another reason, even on top of everything, that they're just not going to be owned. I think it's completely viable to play them. I'm going to mix in some Snell in some lineups because one of these days he's going to put up a number that it doesn't make sense to me when you compare him versus Garcia, why he would be more owned than Garcia. I really just don't understand it. But it does make sense to me that why he'd be somewhat owned on a slate like this. It's just, at what point, I don't want to give up on, like, the truth is, if he was going to be like 5% owned tonight, I might be talking about locking him in. You know what I mean? But it's just like you said, when is a good time to know whether or not these are the projections or whatever are a good play and all that. If the guy's going to be 50% owned and he hasn't like shown any sign of an ability to get through more than 5 innings, it's probably the right idea to be definitely below the field, at least in terms of your dollar entry value.
Well, and I'll tell you this: you want a construction where you can play Toronto. You play Toronto with Cincy. I mean,
yeah, and I don't. And this is, and by the way, I just want to add to what Josh is saying in chat. This has nothing to do with talking about chalky pitchers in general, or we both are fine playing chalky pitchers.
Yep.
It's playing chalky pitchers that are like never produce, and their range of outcomes are extremely wide to be owned by 50% of the field, that you can get different just by not playing that guy, which is very appealing. So long story short, I have both sides of this game. Obviously, I do prefer the Padres a lot. And
I forgot Padres. I forgot to mention. I have them as second best stack and the second highest owned.
Yeah, I'm looking at the ownership though, and the second highest owned doesn't look as high owned as you might think. Like you do have the Tatis, obviously, and the Machado and Soto and those guys is getting ownership, but the other guys in the order, the no one's going to play Cronenworth at first base. No one's playing 5,500 for Bogarts today. Matt Carpenter is the other one who's going to be popular, but you can use him at first or third. And you can also use Grisham in the outfield at 3,200 at the bottom of the order. So I think there are ways to get different within this stack. And I think that they are right now the stack along with Houston that make the most sense to me.
I also would like to say maybe this is not the greatest spot or whatever, but a short slate. Luke Weaver's been striking out dudes.
Yeah, he does that. That's what he does.
I mean, that's all I can say. He was actually, I had him I forget. I was following him 2 games back and struggling with all kinds of stuff, but he works through. I just don't know if I could do it at San Diego.
Yeah, what he struggles with is he walks people and he gives up home runs.
That's not what you want to do against them.
Not, in general, not what you want to do. But the Padres haven't exactly looked like, their offense at least has not been like Padre-esque for the most part this season, or what it looks like on paper. But I understand the Weaver argument. I just don't think I'm going to be able to do it today. And partly it's just him getting any ownership at all. I'm just, completely fading that. I don't believe San Diego is nearly as bad as they've been, and I'm just going to bet on them against them.
All right. So if you didn't like any of that, I'm going to ask you directly, but first I'm going to ask rhetorically. Remember, here's the rules. I have to do the last game first.
Yeah.
Okay. The question that you're going to answer after I talk about the Dodgers stack is the Gonsolin question. The question is going to be, is it time to play Gonsolin? But now let's talk about the Dodgers first. I have the Dodgers as another of the 5 stacks that I'm looking at. I don't have them particularly low owned or particularly the best play. I just have them kind of in there. So they are the 5th team, and I have Gonsolin as a guy that projects these well enough. So I wanted to know if that pseudo rehab start they had last time was a springboard into like a real start today.
Yeah, so I think there is a pretty good chance of that. I don't know. Like again, everybody's pretty affordable today. There's no pitchers that we're talking about spending a ton of money on.
No.
But so the savings really help. I'm not really sure they help that much. For what it's worth, like he threw 65. My guess is they would try and keep him in the 80 range today. I don't know that I can buy that he's going to go any further than that without like things just cruising exceptionally well and something happening. And the fact that he's getting ownership against a tough Philly team. Honestly, that's my other thought of what to do is to play Philly. I like Gonsolin, don't get me wrong, but I will take shots on these smaller slates, and it's a good lineup they have over there. Maybe not a full stack, but certainly 1, 2, 3, 5, 6. Actually, everybody all the way through is certainly in play. And then you get the Dodgers against Walker. I'm probably going to be below the field on the Gonsolin thing as of right now. I may change my mind later, but that's where I'm at for right now. But the Dodgers being low owned here, that seems a little weird, right? Like I know that they haven't been the offense that we've wanted. And as I said before the year, I don't think that this is the same Dodger team we've been talking about the last few years. But Will Smith is back in the lineup. Max Muncy is crushing everything. They're going to have some ownership, but it's not like crazy. You're talking about everybody in the teens that is looking at like right now. You've got the cheap Vargas down at the bottom of the order to try and make a stack work, and he's going to be low owned too. No one's going to play Jason Hayward with the good options they have in outfield, and I would rather not play Jason Hayward, but it's worth considering. And same with Peralta. Like to maybe get different in the stack. So, I mean, I know I've said this about a bunch of games. You sort of have to talk all these things through when you have, a small slate, ways to get different. Getting some exposure to this Philadelphia LA game, which, by the way, also has, it's probably going to be drizzling in LA, but it's not going to, I don't think there's anything to actually worry about. It's probably going to be like consistent, like light drizzle. It is kind of cold. It's 58 degrees, but there is wind blowing out to left center at 11 miles an hour. I can get behind both these offenses and neither of these pitchers, to be honest with you. So they're not my first priority to play these teams, but I actually am surprised the Dodgers aren't looking more popular. And I am surprised that Gonsolin is quite as popular as he is. So to sum it up for me, I guess that as priorities for main 5-man stacks, we'll probably end up San Diego and Houston. Pieces, Toronto, Boston, Cincinnati, and then definitely some Dodgers and Phillies mixed in. I just don't know whether I want to go full stacks with them. Pitchers that I have as the biggest priorities are Garcia #1, Mackenzie Gore #2 right now. And then to get different, Barrios versus Snell, we could probably, it's a good like 1v1 bet. Like how often does Barrios outscore Snell here? And Barrios is 1/10 the ownership. That's sort of my thinking on that one. So really, and then Gore, Barrios, Garcia, and Snell are probably the guys I'm going to use the most. Maybe throw Herman into that mix, but I do like the Padres in Houston, and if Houston does stay low owned like this, I have no problem stacking parts of Houston that don't include one of Tucker or Alvarez and Pena.
Yeah, I have Gore, then either Garcia, Herman, Smiley maybe, just all kinds of possibilities. This was the second one. And hitting, I like the Dodgers, I like the Red Sox, Houston, Toronto, San Diego, those main teams. And I'll throw in the ultra leverage on Cincinnati with leverage and with Stevenson in India. This is what I just screwed around with right here. Dodgers, I put Outman and Peralta with Betts, Freeman. I put in Stevenson in India. I put Muncy in too, and left 2,600 for a shortstop somewhere. But yeah, I kind of like this. And again, you could play Toronto's with and look, like I said, like don't play Toronto's with Snell. I don't think. I think the combination is too chalky, even if you like Snell. And that's
the perfect opportunity just to play Barrios instead.
Yeah.
Especially because you get the double, you get the help. You know what I mean? We know how much pitchers thrive when they have more than a 4-run lead. There's been a lot of studies on this, and it's all positive.
So we'll be hopefully we'll be there at 6 tonight to go through the more lineup buildy type stuff. We'll see you then.
Some basketball as well. Yeah.
Oh, that's right. And NBA tonight too. Still 2 games tonight.
Yep. All right, buddy. Well, have a good day. Good luck to everybody. We'll hopefully see you guys. Hopefully somebody can take something down tonight. Good luck.